Hi everyone, I'm Lee Packett. I'm joined by Professor David Schoenbrod. He's going to help us unpack that monumental Supreme Court decision that upholds the EPA's authority to regulate power plant pollution across state lines. Professor, thanks for joining us. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Why is this decision such a big deal?
Well, here you have 6 justices, 4 fairly liberal justices, 2 fairly conservative justices joining together to put a stamp of approval on EPA's being able to regulate power plant emissions that come from one state and cause harm in another state. And that's a great thing because it's going to help EPA cut pollution, and it's especially important because the Clean Air Act, as it was enacted in 1970, is no good whatsoever for dealing with pollutants that go across state lines. I mean, it was designed with the thought in mind that most pollution that we breathe in comes from sources in our state. Therefore, Congress could tell the states to clean up their acts and everything would be fine. The problem is today, the vast bulk of pollution comes from many, many hundreds of thousands of miles away, so it's really a national problem. So it's kind of nuts to have the federal government telling the states to regulate pollution. What we ought to have is the federal government regulating pollution.
And of course, Justice Ginsburg wrote an interesting opinion here. I got to ask, you weren't quite surprised at this outcome, were you?
No, I thought it would come out this way, and I'm glad it came out this way. But we got problems still. I mean, because the act was designed for with the idea in mind that pollutants are normally intrastate, it took EPA something like 15 years to get to the point we are today, because the court really had to shoehorn this result into this antique statute. And the problem with that is that even though EPA is going to be able to take one more step in favor of cutting pollution now, we need to take 2, because pollutants, even beyond the level that EPA is going to be able to cut with this decision, they need to cut more in order to save lives. And this rather bizarre old statute doesn't allow them to do it.
Does this decision portend more aggressive environmental regulation in the United States going forward?
Well, if it had come out the other way, EPA could not regulate about greenhouse gases, and it could not have gone as far as it's now planning to go on conventional pollutants. But the point is that we ought to be able to go further, but we can't because the statute's stupid. I mean, the court helped out a stupid statute, but we still have a stupid statute. And the reason it's stupid is when you have national, or in the case of greenhouse gases, international pollutant problems, we need a national approach, the kind of approach we use with acid rain, where Congress set up a limit on how much acid rain emissions there could be, apportioned rights to emit them to polluters, allowed the polluters to trade, which got us down to the kind of cuts in acid rain that Congress wanted in a way that saved billions of dollars for ratepayers and industry. EPA, even under this new decision, can't do that. It's nuts.
So from a 35,000-foot perspective, what comes next in your view?
Well, what ought to come next is Congress ought to fix the statute and to set it up so we have national regulation of a national pollution problem. Now, that's what makes sense. Will Congress do what makes sense? I don't know. But here we have liberals and conservatives on the Supreme Court saying this kind of approach makes sense. And the acid rain program was a program that was proposed by George Bush I, passed by Democrats and Republicans in Congress. That's the way we ought to go. So yes, this is a good decision. It moves in the right direction, but we need action from Congress to go where we ought to go.
What does it all mean for the coal industry?
Well, these are hard times for the coal industry. I mean,
and they just got harder, apparently.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, tougher regulation of pollutants makes burning coal less economical. It has the competition from the fracked gas. And so this decision will drive some additional coal plants out of business. And that is not unintentional on EPA's part. I mean, a way of cutting greenhouse gases is to limit emissions of conventional pollutants, which would then drive more coal plants out of business, which would mean that we're going to have more power plants powered by fracked gas, and therefore less greenhouse gases.
Right. So when industry interests and conservatives say the Obama administration is waging a war on coal, they're not exactly being hyperbolic.
No, they're not. And a war on coal is probably warranted.
Interesting stuff. David, thank you so much for stopping by.
Great. Nice to see you.
If you'd like to see more of the stuff that New York Law School is working on, be sure to go check out their YouTube channel, and you can also follow them on Twitter. I'm Lee Pacquiao. Thanks for watching.